Welcome back, everyone, and happy Thanksgiving week. This week we are revisiting an old episode on the wild turkey to celebrate. It's John, Shannon, Amanda, and myself, and we're joined by Jacob Drucker as well. Jacob is a Ph.D. candidate at the University of Chicago and is at the Field Museum with John and Shannon. Jacob did a few episodes on Hawaiian Honeycreepers with us last year as well. He lived in Hawaii and studied them, as well as did a lot of conservation work. So it was a great episode that you should go back and check out if you haven't listened. In addition to talking about the wild turkey, we also spend a little bit of time talking about the super beautiful ocellated turkey as well. Okay, go grab your binoculars, maybe some stuffing, and let's get into it. This is RJ, Amanda, and John and Shannon are with us, and we have Jacob joining us again today as well to talk about the wild turkey. All right, so is there anywhere we want to start specifically talking about the turkey?
Well, the first thing I'm going to say is that wild turkey is one of the more amazing conservation stories in North America, in the sense that they were pretty much extirpated from about 90% of their range. And since about the mid-1900s, they've been reestablished incredibly, and they've done very, very well. So they're in the realm of a bird like the non-migratory populations of Canada goose, in terms of something that have gone from something that was almost mythical to people to something that people are seeing in cities all over the eastern U.S. now. And so, it really is kind of an amazing conservation success story.
And what has mostly led to the success? Is there kind of one factor? Or?
I think a lot of it is no, I don't think it's one factor, because I think some of it actually says a lot about wild turkeys, which is that they always point out that Ben Franklin wanted it to be the national bird, and bald eagle won out. But one of the things Franklin would talk about was how smart they were. And whether or not it's intelligence, they certainly have an incredible capacity for a large bird to exist around a lot of predators and do it successfully.
Yeah, that's why people think they're smart, is because they're really social, right? I mean, does that make them smart? Maybe. They certainly do have that kind of a social behavior thing, but I think a lot of birds are smart by my definition. That doesn't mean that they have to like being around people. They're very aggressive. I don't know if you've ever been kind of run at by any turkeys, but there's a dominance hierarchy in turkeys, and they seem to think we're part of that, right?
Both males and females will be aggressive, or?
I don't know about females.
Okay.
Do you know?
Nope.
No.
Do you know, Jacob?
So we've seen females in the wild up in northern Wisconsin, and we were there was like a group of maybe 20 of them, and they like jumped out, and we just kind of stood there, and they all kind of just meandered around us and kept going and didn't really look, and then kept going.
Yeah.
And it
well,
was
they
like,
look cute until they decide they need to be dominant over you.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
And then they don't look so cute.
Okay.
Them and swans are terrifying when they've decided that, they want to be pretty aggressive. So maybe I had different experiences with wild turkeys growing up than you guys did. You didn't mess with wild turkeys.
Oh. They're actually introduced where you grew up in southern Canada.
They came with their social system and evolutionary intact with them. So... But, I mean, if you look at turkeys beyond just what we think of as turkeys on your table are white-feathered things that have been domesticated for people to eat, right? But that's not what turkeys actually look like. And if you look up close at turkeys, their feathers are just not just their colors, but their shapes of their feathers are just unbelievable. There's all this iridescence. There's a lot of different kinds of colors. There's bronzes and greens that are all iridescent, and their feathers are really amazing. And they have these wattles, which I learned yesterday are called snoods. Did you know that?
I think I learned that the last time I had to talk to people about turkeys.
Yeah, I didn't know that until yesterday. I'm like, a snood. But anyways, their snoods get really big during the breeding season and get all red, and mean,
And they
they're just
change
bizarre.
color, like it just like they can, the blood flow, like it'll turn more red, just like they're getting more aggressive, right? It's like you can
Yeah.
actually see the change happening, which I thought was
Yeah.
kind of cool.
And they can fly. I mean, they don't do it very often, but they're actually quite strong flyers for at least short distances.
Yeah, and that's what another thing. If you just think of the turkey on your table, you don't think of them. They don't fly because they're not around long enough really to do those kinds of things. But yeah, so turkeys are a lot cooler than just the stuff you eat on your Thanksgiving
Yeah.
Well,
table.
in coming back to the idea of how smart they are, but I mean, again, the populations have just exploded in the last 70, 80 years across eastern North America. And, how many people have seen a turkey nest? So this is a big
Not
bird
me.
that's laying a fairly large clutch of eggs. What is it, 4 to 13 or something?
Yeah,
And they have to be out there in the forest, and yet I've never seen a turkey nest. And so, what I like about turkeys is they have the capacity to be incredibly discreet and not all that noticeable in a landscape where there can be an awful lot of them these days, like up in Wisconsin.
Yeah. Yeah, we tried to go find them after they passed us, and it was like they were gone. It was like all of a sudden there was a bunch of them there, and then 10 seconds later they had all wandered off and we couldn't find them again. So they were super discreet.
I mean, as I understand it, the hunters will tell you that they're a challenge, and it's mostly because when they know you're coming, they can clear out and be hard to find.
One of my favorite turkey anecdotes is from Bosque del Apache National Wildlife Refuge in New Mexico, which is this big, famous wildlife refuge for giant numbers of sandhill cranes and snow and Ross's geese. But the last time I was there, we saw this giant, it looked like a dinosaur herd of 200-300 turkeys all foraging in this fallow field with the cranes and a bunch of peccaries too. These pigs all foraging in this thing, and we said, "Oh wow, that's so cool! I've never seen. I feel like I'm walking with dinosaurs. It's very, it's totally different than your typical turkey experience." We went, came back half an hour later, all gone.
Jeez,
Wow.
hundreds.
And again, coming back to your comment about why they're doing so well, I think in an area like Wisconsin, you've got this perfect matrix of forest plots that they can go into and get up in the trees and roost in the trees at night, and then they can come out and feed in cornfields during the day. And so they've adapted really well to this mixed agricultural landscape across the country.
John, what led to them, like you were saying, they were extirpated? Yeah.
Extirpated means taken out of the environment. So
Okay.
it's on the road to extinction.
Okay.
But
So they were extirpated out of 90% of their range. Why? How? What
Yeah,
happened?
it was basically hunting and habitat conversion is my primary thought on that. And then, if you look at what's happened in eastern North America, for instance, states like Pennsylvania and New York, which were
those
largely
were refuges for them.
But
That's where the ones that they went to Minnesota. And
so
places like that,
some of
they
these
came from
areas
there.
like the Adirondacks
Yeah.
and some of the places that weren't logged, but the rest of the state was basically farmland for long periods of time, and so they didn't have the woodlots and things that they needed. And again, it's amazing to think about how much change has happened over eastern North America over the last 200 years or so.
So I went back and looked at our collections, because I always do, to figure out how many we have of these things. And this was really interesting to me. We have 187 turkeys in our collection. And the earliest one is from Pennsylvania in 1854. So there's a lot of stuff that we could learn about just the movements of individuals and the relatedness of individuals going backward in time through collections. I think that would be a really interesting thing to do, to track it genomically, the things that we know maybe a little bit about from historical written records of what people did to them.
And you can go even further back in time because they show up. Turkey bones are readily identifiable, and they show up in middens in archaeological sites. And so there's been some effort to get DNA out of the bones of turkeys in these fossil sites to look at historical genetic structure.
And that was back before they were called turkeys, by the way.
And then as beautiful as wild turkey is, people should also Google ocellated turkey, which is the other member of the genus, because it's only found down in Central America. And it's literally one of the most beautiful birds in the world in many ways.
Oh.
Wow.
And we don't have any in our collections.
Yes, we do.
We do?
Yeah, we'll have ocellated turkeys.
I looked and I didn't see anything.
Really? Well, now we got to Google it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
What's different about them? What do they
They're
look like?
just more brightly colored.
Oh.
They're actually a little smaller and more brightly colored. And if you go down to some of the Mayan, the archaeological sites in places like Guatemala and Honduras, they're just around the sites because they've been living in these areas for their entire existence, and so they're just absolutely stunning birds. We can post a picture that was taken by one of our former volunteers who went down there.
Oh, great.
Have you seen them live?
No, I haven't spent any time in the Yucatan where they are.
Mm-hmm. I haven't, of course, seen them live.
But the neck, it looks like it's like the color of windshield wiper fluid.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
It's like just bright blue and then kind of offset with neon orange, little bumps and things. And
Wow.
Wild turkey in North America feathers, they're kind of like they look metallic, and ocellated does too. But if you just like put tie-dye in your steel wash, you would end up with.
They're a stunning bird.
That's
it's just
crazy.
not but again, Shannon's right. Like North American turkeys are surprisingly beautiful. We have this one set of it's basically we were skeletonizing a turkey that had come in as a salvaged bird, and they saved the feathers along and skin along the back of the bird down to the tail, and it's one of the best things to take out for birds for touching when we go out and talk to the public, because most people can figure out what it is, and it usually takes them a little while, but then they get up close to it and can see just how absolutely stunning these feathers are.
That's a feather that if you smash it with a hammer turns gray,
Oh, okay.
because it's all about the structure that makes that that's not a dye or pigments inside that feather, it's structure. And when you disrupt the structure, just like we've talked about in other podcasts, the feather turns gray. It's dramatic too. And that's something people can actually do if you can find turkey feathers. You could do that on your own very own science experiment.
One of the things that's always been super striking to me is the difference between the male and the female, not just the way they look, but the size too. I feel like the male is so much bigger than the female, the sexual dimorphism, is that what it's called? Are there other examples of birds where the size difference is that much between the male and the female? It seems like a really extreme.
Yeah, it's very interesting you're bringing that up, because we just had a wonderful seminar from a researcher named Sarah Lipschitz, because while there are lots of examples where the males are bigger than females, she actually studies these birds called jasanas, which are also, the common name is lily trotters. They have these big, long toes that they walk around in flooded areas. And in jasanas, the females are bigger than the males.
Oh.
And so they've switched the role reversals, and actually the males do the caring for the young. So, yeah, no, within the galliform birds, so the chicken-like birds, which turkeys are a family within that group, I'd say it's pretty typical for males to be bigger than females and have these adornments, because there's basically sexual selection for male displays to attract females.
Okay.
Yeah, more bizarre than turkeys even when you start looking at grouse booming, and some of their behavior puts turkeys to the side when you see the way some of these other birds behave.
Yeah, but none of them gobble, Shannon.
That's true.
Okay, fair.
There's some pretty good calls. I mean,
Yeah.
I put ptarmigan up there with anything
Oh
in the
yeah,
world.
and sage grouse. But the biggest size dimorphism happens in these groups that display these birds that display in group called leks, right? So turkeys, sage grouse. If you're a female, it's easier to pick between your males when they're all together. And turkeys do that. Sage-grouse do that. Prairie chickens do that.
So I'll tell you, they like females must like bigger males, or it wouldn't be like that.
Okay.
Right. So it might not be the only thing they care about, but they clearly care about size.
Okay.
Well, that's why it's such a neat field, right? Because you've also got the males battling among themselves to get the best positions, and too. So there's a lot of complexity about that. That's it. Yeah.
Is there like a pecking order or alpha, I guess, of the group when they get together with a bunch of males like that? Or is it just kind of...
So I don't know about turkeys, but that's certainly true in chickens. Anybody who's had chickens will tell you that within their chicken coops, there's a very clear hierarchy. And it's not just one bird dominating everything else. It actually goes down the ladder where you can have third and fourth dominating the fifth, sixth, and seventh.
I think that's true in turkeys, too.
Okay.
I think they have a dominance hierarchy. But I think they're not so concerned about having people as part of their dominance hierarchies. So they're so accustomed to being around people that they just view you as part of someone to dominate, if that's the way it's going to be. But they've been around humans for a long time. Looking back at some of the literature, they've been domesticated for over 2,000 years. That's a long time. And I thought the way they got their name is hilarious to me, or one of the ways people have hypothesized they get their names. It's this Columbian exchange that happened after Columbus came, and there were things that were brought back and forth across the world after that. And turkeys were one of those things that ended up in Britain, but they went in Britain through the area around Turkey. And so that's where they got their name. The British people who imported them in that way thought they were from Turkey.
Really?
So,
no way.
because that's where the ship that came from that brought them there.
Oh.
So they ended up being called Turkey because they thought they
I did not know that.
Turkey.
That's hilarious.
So that made me. I didn't really know that.
That's some good Thanksgiving conversation.
Yes,
Yeah.
But
that is crazy.
The whole I have mixed feelings about Thanksgiving and kind of in general.
Let's hear it.
No, you want to talk about getting political?
Okay.
I think the whole dominance hierarchy in people is something that does not necessarily bring up the best in people. Historically, it definitely is not. But the evidence for turkeys being at the first Thanksgiving dinner is not there. So other forms of protein, yes, but not turkeys. So I don't know do you guys know how turkeys became so prevalent and associated with Thanksgiving?
Well, I think the reason why they've become such a food item around the world is they have a lot of meat on them. I mean, they're kind of and I think they're relatively easy to raise. So I'm thinking back to Jacob saying, why didn't sage grouse become a bird around
Too
the world?
small.
And I think I think there's some things about turkeys where they have a lot of meat, and I think, like you said, once they adapt around people, they're pretty easy to keep.
John, you sent us a picture of a turkey that you saw in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
The greatest thing about my job is I get to go to all these great places, and we were trying to get back out of the field in an island called Ijwi in Lake Kivu in the middle of the Congo on the eastern edge, and we got to this as we were driving out. One of the guys that worked with us had a little farm, and his family had some turkeys, and so he was bringing these turkeys back. And so the picture is of me after this very, very long, rough bus ride, where this turkey that we had wrapped into a basket because it was going to become dinner somewhere was actually starting to get out, and so I just reached over and grabbed it, and somebody took a picture. But I literally I posted it at one point early on, and I got an email from some turkey biologists from Purdue University who wanted to know what the history was. And again, coming back to what Shannon said, I think early on people domesticated them, were able to rear them in captivity, and so they've made it to all corners of the world, including the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo.
Well, I mean, they taste good, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
They do.
And there's lots of food for things like turkeys to eat.
Yeah, I was thinking
with the way humans have altered the landscapes.
Another thing about these kinds of birds is their young are what's called precocial, which means they hatch fully able to move around. So chickens are like this, and I think that provides a measure of and their clutch sizes are fairly large, so you can get a lot of individuals raised up into a small captive population pretty easily.
All right. Well, I think. Oh, Jacob.
So the specifics are fuzzy, but I'm pretty sure that turkey became a Thanksgiving entity because of some author. And I can't remember her name, but there was some, hot, trendy author post-depression who wrote some, I don't know whether it was a magazine piece or a novel that it coincided with the popularization of Thanksgiving in American culture, and turkey was a part of that story. And I think the popularization of Thanksgiving and turkey, the connotation with turkey happened then. But clearly I don't remember all the details.
I mean, turkeys are also really old in an evolutionary sense, like tens of millions of years old, which is, pretty good.
Yeah.
They've been around for a long time.
They can also, they have these gizzards that can crush almost anything. They've done some ridiculous experiments with that. So they eat acorns and things, and they can just grind them up. So you can feed them almost anything.
And they also dust. As I look down at my notes, I mean.
Wait,
so
what do you mean they dust?
Kind of like the anting thing.
Oh.
They get on the ground and make all these weird movements to put dust on their feathers, clean their feathers off, and get rid of mites and other parasites on their feathers. And there's videos of it that's hilarious, actually, if you go back and look at videos of turkeys dusting, because it's a pretty big bird to do things like that, so it's kind of dramatic.
I didn't realize that they have beards when I was doing my research.
They're incredibly modified feathers, so they're really strange. I mean, it feels more like hair than anything else.
But it is actually like a feather, right?
Yeah,
a feather.
Yeah, it's a very modified. Oh. Yeah, I don't know that anybody's ever studied that. It would be interesting.
And they said some females have beards too, which was interesting.
We focus way too much on males.
Well, no, but what I wonder on that is whether that's related to testosterone levels, which are elevated in a dominant female, for instance. Maybe, I mean, I wouldn't surprise me if there's a potential correlation.
I don't think that's what Sarah found in Chicanas.
That's true. She didn't. Yeah, that's true.
So,
you're right. Speaking of things,
it's not just testosterone boys that produce those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I think that's it for this one then. So thanks, everyone. John, you want to close it out?
Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. As you're thinking about your turkey, think about what ship it came from and what part of the world.
We want to thank Earhole Studios in Chicago for recording. Shout out to Daniel and Adam for all their help. If you have a question for John, Shannon, Amanda, and I, feel free to send it to podcast.birdsofafeather@gmail.com or reach out to us on Instagram. We want to wish everyone a safe and peaceful Thanksgiving,